And they're soft. Really, really soft. Boll & Branch sheets feel like they should cost $1,000. But they don't. You can get a sheet set starting at just $160. Trying them out is an easy thing to do because Boll & Branch believes in their work. And they want you to as well. It's why they're offering a month of comfort at no risk to you. If you don't love your sheets, just send them back for a full refund. Right now, you can get $50 off any sheet set when you visit bollandbranch.com and use the promo code FACTS. That's Bolland, spelled BOLLAND, branch.com. And the promo code is FACTS. Restrictions may apply. See website for details.
President Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden are set to square off in their first face-to-face debate of the 2020 election tonight. And hours before the debate, the Biden campaign released Joe and Jill Biden's 2019 tax returns. This, of course, as we learned from the New York Times, that President Trump has largely avoided paying federal personal income taxes and still has not released his tax returns. Here with me to discuss the debate is Bakari Sellers and Trump campaign advisor David Urban. David, I played something earlier from President Trump in the second presidential debate in 2016, basically confirming the idea that he tries to avoid paying taxes as much as possible in terms of all sorts of ways that a CPA might recommend. Do you think he just goes to that same playbook this evening?
Jake, just to kind of correct the record on that, on 17 and 18, I have two, since we can't be together, I have two visual aids to share with you, right? So
okay.
in 17, the president actually paid $1 million in taxes, $1 million. And in 18, he paid $4.2 million in taxes.
What kinds of taxes are you talking about, and where'd that come from?
That's in the New York Times story. You can read it. New York Times the piece reports that, and it says that then he applied for that he paid those in anticipated taxes, right, for his 17-18 return. He then claimed a business tax credit on renovation of the hotel, historic tax credit, which then deferred those two payments into out years, and his tax liability was then reduced to the $750. But for 17 and 18, he paid to the U.S. Treasury those two amounts. Interestingly, in 17 and 18. Vice President Biden, in a tax avoidance scheme, I would say, put his money in an S corporation to avoid paying Medicare and Social Security taxes, about 15%. And what the vice president did was lauded as a smart strategy by some of the time. So I would say that there's a pox on all houses here on tax avoidance, and I would suspect that if the vice president goes after the president, he'll return such to the vice president.
I mean, there's so much there that you just said, David. I mean, but I'll let Bakari say it. But just as a general note, I mean, Joe Biden has nowhere near the amount of income that President Trump has. President Trump is a self-described billionaire. But Bakari, that is obviously one approach that we're likely to hear from Donald Trump this evening. What do you think?
No, I like David a lot, and I think that if Donald Trump tries that approach tonight and stumbles through that and gets himself in a pretzel like David just did, trying to explain something that to most of the American people makes no sense, then that's going to be a win for Joe Biden. The fact is that his tax liability, what he paid, was $750. That's less than most teachers. That's less than most 9-to-5 workers, most factory workers in Ohio and Pennsylvania. I mean, it's a travesty. It's an injustice. It's a sham. There's nothing you can say about that. But that Joe Biden tonight has to be strong. He will be, I believe. And it's very difficult to debate someone like Donald Trump. I think people forget that although most people will tell you Hillary Clinton won all three debates, Donald Trump really did well in those three debates. And it's not as if he's just going to go in there and lay down. He's going to be evasive. He's going to lie a lot. And he actually has no answers for these taxes. My last point to David is that, if you want to hold up 17 and 18, I think one of the things you can advise the campaign to do is release their taxes, period. I mean, I don't know why that's a problem. They're not under audit. He should just release his taxes and be done with it.
So, David, let me ask another question, because Dana Bash is reporting that the Trump team has signaled that they are going to attack Joe Biden about his son, Hunter Biden, and his business dealings. Now, I guess one of the questions I have is there anybody who cares about the Hunter Biden issue to make it a voting issue that isn't already voting for Donald Trump? And more to the point, if I'm an undecided voter, let's say in suburban Pittsburgh, and I like what Trump does policy-wise, I like his judges, but I just hate how mean and nasty he is. Does going after Hunter Biden help or hurt?
Yeah, look, I don't think there's a lot to gain, right, by kind of ad hominem attacks from either side. I think the president has hey, look, we talked about this on this show with Bakari, myself, you, and others. My viewpoint is the president's got a sufficient record. He should stand on it, run on your record, be proud of the things you've accomplished. No need to go in with the ad hominem attacks. It just, as you said, a lot of people don't like the tweets, don't like those kind of ad hominem attacks, and I think he'd do best to avoid it and stick to the record.
And Bakari, what do you recommend to Joe Biden? Obviously, if Donald Trump does such a thing, we're told by Caitlin Collins and Dana Bash, it would be with the strategy of trying just to knock Biden off his feet and unsettle him, distract him. What do you recommend that Joe Biden do if Donald Trump tries such an approach?
You know, I think that's a good question, and it's one that everybody's watching tonight. You know, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the jaw, right? And so the quote unquote, the great American philosopher, Mike Tyson. And so, you know, we're going to see what happens tonight because there are going to be haymakers coming from all over the place. And Donald Trump's going to go low, especially when it comes to Hunter Biden. I think Joe Biden has to be honest. He has to be straightforward. He has to not get frazzled. And he has to be the Joe that we all know. But when you attack someone's children, there is a level of emotion that comes into play. And I think people are going to want to see Joe Biden fight back, but remain presidential. And that's going to be a line that he's going to have to walk cautiously. People have no expectations for decorum or character or an honesty coming from Donald Trump. But what they do want to see is if Joe Biden can actually show the contrast of being presidential. So when someone drags your child through the mud, instead of returning fire and dragging Ivanka and Jared and Eric and Donald because there's enough there to drag them through the mud, you look Donald Trump in the eye and you say, we're going to talk about how to make sure we improve the plight and help carry the load for the American people who are suffering on your watch. I think that's the way you respond on those attacks on Hunter Biden.
Well, David, according to polls, for whatever they're worth, the president is not leading right now. I mean, I'm not saying that he's not going to win. Obviously, there's always a path. Sure. Would you recommend that he behave in a presidential way so as to undermine Joe Biden's strategy, which Bakari just laid out, which is right. Joe Biden wants to appear, you know, like the stable presidential leader. Would you recommend that Donald Trump also try to do that as well?
Listen, you know, as I just, you know, explained, I think, again, this president has a very strong record to run on deregulation, on job creation, on lots of positive things he can talk about. And so I would, as you point out, you know, remain kind of above the fray, talk about policy. Although, let's face it, nobody really remembers policy. This isn't, you know, presidential debates aren't remembered. Who has the best white paper and talking points on tax reform? They're really, you know, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? You know, as Bakari points out, there'll be a lot of haymakers thrown. This is a prize fight between two heavyweights, and you know, the goal for both camps, I think, is to not take any knockdowns.
All right, Bakari Sellers, David Urban, good to see both of you. Thanks so much for joining. It's the political face-off you don't want to miss. Tonight, Donald Trump, Joe Biden meeting in the first presidential debate of 2020. You can see it right here on CNN. Our special coverage starts at 7 p.m. Eastern. We are waiting for a major development in the Breonna Taylor case. A grand juror's push for the truth could lead to something rarely released. Plus, the danger moving in on California's wine country as more wildfires erupt. That's next. In our national lead today, the unprecedented wildfires out west are now pushing in on California's wine country. The state has some 70,000 people under evacuation orders, and wildfires are now to blame for 29 deaths this year in California alone. CNN's Josh Campbell is in Santa Rosa in Sonoma County. And Josh, there are nearly 1,500 firefighters just where you are, yet all that has been no match for these fires.
Yeah, that's right, Jake. As of this point, these fires are 0% contained. There are a number of firefighters here in this area in Santa Rosa, as well as two other fires north of where we are, and they continue to battle these blazes. You can see behind me here the result of some of that destruction. We're here in a residential area. This is not far from California's famous wine country, where we've seen these images of this wildfire just ripping through some of these fields, taking out area, those vineyards serving as fuel for a lot of those fires. And one thing, Jake, that is so eerie as we cover these natural disasters is looking at what Mother Nature takes and what she leaves behind. Next to this home that was destroyed, you see a home that's largely still intact here that wasn't burned, yet we continue to see firefighters in and around this area looking for hot spots. You can see up above the hill there's a fire department team. Our crew was actually here reporting, and we noticed one of the homes up there was set ablaze. There was a reignition of one of the fires, so we went, grabbed one of the fire teams. They've been working on that for quite some time. Now, of course, as we talk about the what here with these fires, it's also important to talk about the why. Experts continue to tell us that global warming continues to fuel a lot of these fires. That's stemming from increased temperatures, from CO2 emissions, as well as earlier snow melt, lower precipitation. That is what these firefighters are fighting on the front lines as these continue. And Jake, the news is even more bleak looking into the future. The latest National Climate Assessment indicates that we could, on the western coast here of the United States in the future, see 2 to 6 times more land burned than we're seeing even today, which is itself unprecedented. Jake.
Yeah, climate change obviously a factor in a lot of this. Thank you so much, Josh. New updates from the Breonna Taylor case. After initially refusing to do so, the Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron has now agreed to release audio recordings of the grand jury presentation by tomorrow. No police officers were charged directly with the killing of Breonna Taylor. One officer was charged with endangering 3 people in a neighboring apartment. An unidentified grand juror filed a motion for both recordings and transcripts to be released, while also asking the court to allow them to speak publicly about the case. Shimon Prokupecz is in Louisville with the latest. Shimon, how would the audio recordings of the grand jury's presentation be released tomorrow, and what are we expecting to hear?
Yeah, so it's supposed to be filed. The judge ordered the Attorney General to file it, the state's Attorney General, to file it with the court by noon Wednesday. So by then it will be filed, and it should be made public at some point after that. So these recordings were taken over 2 days. The presentation to the grand jury was over 2 days. So we expect to hear what evidence was presented to the grand jury and what everyone here is looking for, what Breonna Taylor's family is looking for, what so many of the protesters out here who say that this case was not presented fairly to the grand jury, they want to see exactly what evidence the Attorney General put in. Did he put in information about the killing of Breonna Taylor at all? Was her name even mentioned before this grand jury? So that is something everyone here is going to be looking at, Jake.
And then there's this extraordinary fact that the grand juror, him or herself, made this motion. What more are you hearing about his or her request?
Yeah, this is pretty extraordinary, and I don't remember a time that this has ever been done. So this grand juror who sat through this entire presentation, hearing what the Attorney General and how he characterized the presentation, said that the Attorney General mischaracterized the presentation, hired a lawyer, and the lawyer filed a motion to put pressure on the court to release the grand jury information. And also this juror says they want to talk. They want to talk about what went on inside that jury. So we're waiting to hear if the judge will rule on that. The lawyer for that juror spoke today, and they said they want the truth out. They want honest, and they want the information out there because they feel what the Attorney General did here, he has not been forthcoming in exactly the way he presented the case.
All right, Shimon Prokupecz, thank you so much. Joe Biden has now arrived in Cleveland, Ohio, just stepping off the plane. He will face President Trump in their very first debate in just a few hours. You can watch that here on CNN. More than 205,000 Americans have died from the coronavirus, and as we end our show today, we wanted to take a moment to remember just one of those lives lost. Patricia Ashley, a mother of 3 from Houston, Texas, passed away of complications from COVID-19 earlier this month. She was 53 years old and a preschool teacher in the Houston area. Ashley spent 27 days in the hospital and continued ordering care for her stroke-impaired husband from her ICU bed until she was put on a ventilator. Patricia's sister, Ruby, remembers her as a caring person who had genuine concern for everyone. She was the glue that held the family together, she said. Patricia Ashley, a loving mother, wife, sister, grandmother, friend, and teacher. May her memory be a blessing. Our coverage on CNN continues right now. Be sure to tune into our debate coverage, which starts at 7 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you there.